Stephen, thank you very much. And to Paul, that was a great start. And I must say it was interesting watching it from afar to see ultimately it is about how we respond to adversity. Not only did it respond to in terms of how Paul managed the whole process and the team at Bench Events, but it was interesting watching as well, the number of participants didn't decrease. And I was really pleased to see that, because part of managing adversity is holding on and recognizing that ultimately we will get through this and we will get through it together. And as Paul said, it makes a great story. But truth be told, a lot of the work that I do is in crisis response. And the fact is that we are hardwired in so many ways, how we respond to challenge, how we respond to crisis. And we see a lot of mental gymnastics that need to take place to be able to get through. The next session, and we have one of my, hey, he's here. We have my second speaker. Is going to be looking very distinctly at legacy and sustaining growth through adversity. Now, the interesting thing about legacy is that when we look at it, it's a situation of we're all not just going to hold on, we have to hold on. Because at times we are carrying not just our own ambitions and our own hopes, but those of others. I have two fantastic speakers with me here today that I'm thrilled to be sharing the stage with, or the virtual stage. We have, coming in from Riyadh, AlMadani. He is the CEO of the Royal Commission of AlUla, and he is with us here. We thank you very much for being with us. For those of you who are not aware, and again, full disclosure, I'm very blessed to have been on the advisory board of the RCU, the Royal Commission for AlUla, which Amr is the CEO of, for the last 2+ years. It is a spectacular 20,000 square kilometer piece of land in the ultimately north of Riyadh, slight to the west, spectacular Arabian desert footprint. It has been a cultural crossroads of trade, of commerce for centuries. It is also currently the home of not just 70,000 Bedouin, but also UNESCO World Heritage Sites, such as Hegra, which is Maiden Salah, which many of you will see. When you look at it, you'll recognize the architecture as it's a former kingdom of the Nabatean civilization. It is breathtaking. Importantly, it is one of the 3 mega projects at the heart of Saudi Arabia's Vision 2030. And ultimately an aspiration of the kingdom that is looking at diversifying the economy and mobilizing society through tourism developments. So Amr has a responsibility that is profound. It is incredibly pressured because it is a part of the history and the culture of the people of not just Saudi Arabia, but of the entire Arabian Peninsula. It's a very, very important, again, crossroads for the world. Amr I have known as someone who is incredibly humble. He's very modest, so he will not appreciate the fact that I'm sharing with you that I think he's one of the most courageous, rapid-fire, impactful leaders I've ever been blessed to be with. He jumped on this opportunity rapidly, and we are thrilled to have him. So, Amr, thank you for joining us. Marhaba. We're now going to switch over to Puneet, who has disappeared off my screen, so I'm going to speak a little bit about him as we're hopefully getting him back on. He is in Mumbai. Puneet Chatwal is the CEO and the MD of the Indian Hotels Company Limited. Importantly, he is the guardian and the guardian angel of the Taj Hotel Group, which is very much an icon of India itself, despite the fact that it has a global footprint. And it is very close, as we know, to the Tata family, which created it many, many decades ago. If you look at it, the Tata Group is 150 years old. So that is carrying incredible history. And as I said, a family connection that is very important. He's been in the hotel industry for over 3 decades. He joined IHCL in 2017. He moved from being very much European and American centric to now being back home in Asia. The Taj footprint is currently 85 hotel properties across 54 destinations, approximately 12,000 keys. So massive. But more importantly, as I always say, it is a brand that represents and inspires the hearts of the people of India. We saw that when the Taj went through some horrific attacks in Mumbai not that long ago, and to see how what they call Tajness came to life. He is greatly respected. He is a colleague of mine that I absolutely adore. And he gave me an insight into what exactly is the responsibility of legacy when I was actually at his property in Mumbai in February, and he walked me through the hallways of where everything happened and how with adversity, they rebuilt an even stronger, not just property, but a stronger Taj community. I did have a briefing with my lovely speakers, and we agreed this session is not going to be a variation on a COVID-19 theme. They both told me they don't want to get heavy into the negative, and I was warned that despite my predisposition of being very positive, they don't want me to get too positive about this. We need to stick to the facts, we need to stick to the reality, but we need to stay on course and come together. So, as we're still waiting for Puneet to come on, Amr, I'm going to firstly, again, loving shukran for being with us. We are thrilled to have you. I would love to get from you personally, not just from the point of view of being the CEO of RCU, why is being here today as part of this global conversation, many months, many would argue, before we can even look at the concept of recovery? Why now? Why are you here with us now? Please.
Thank you, Anita. Thank you, Jonathan, for putting this together. And, I'm here because I believe that we, as human, always persevere. I think that the journey we're going through in Saudi Arabia to re-engineer the economy, to share with the world what we have always had, can't be stopped by this. I mean, this is profound for our economy, profound for our people. And I think the world is ought to come together to do something about it. Seeing what I see here today with the movers and shakers of this industry, positively chatting about this, all moving their own levers, I am very confident that the foundation of this industry that touches everybody's life will remain intact. Of course, we will see a lot of new changing dynamics.
Brilliant. Thank you. I have to say, I smiled when you said the movers and the shakers, because everyone's shaking, but no one's moving right now. That's the challenge. But
Yes.
we will get through this. I would love to understand, though, because when I first met you, the RCU only came to life in August of 2017, if I'm correct. Started very small with a massive, massive mandate to really protect, preserve, and promote the legacy of AlUla going into the world as a basis of defining the future of tourism development with enormous investment aspirations, strong targets. And now you have 500 people working with you who are scattered. How have you found as a leader, looking at the challenge that you face of the different directions of people, yet the same direction strategically, how have you kept them motivated through reminding them of the legacy and the responsibility they have?
Thank you, Anita. I think motivation intrinsically is generated inside people when they believe. In AlUla, we are on an agenda to generate 35,000 jobs. This is relevant. This is being done in order to create various opportunities for the local community, for the entrepreneurs, and also open to the world players, hotels and resorts owners, investors, to create value for their value chains as well. I think once this hit all of us, we had some doubt. Is this something we expected? And the answer is, of course not. But then resiliency is something we really value. I think people came together. I'm very proud of my chiefs who are working literally around 8 countries today, taking care of their families, being there for them, but also keeping their eyes and laser focus on the mission. I think it is our responsibilities as leaders to keep the mission vivid. This is not only about bottom line. This is about triple bottom line. This is economy, this is environment, and this is energy as well. So we ought to keep this clear. And I think we're very proud to see people engaging and innovating. And I reckon the loss of productivity is not as high as I had expected to be. So kudos to everybody coming together to navigate through this hard time.
You make a really interesting point about keeping people across 8 countries. I'm pretty sure probably 20 different time zones. So managing all of that, keeping them focused, because that is, as you say, it gives people a sense of belief. It's very easy to get overwhelmed in all of the news and the noise around what's happening. But the fact that you've kept them focused. What I also love as well, though, is that AlUla has always been an initiative that I always say has a holy trinity. You focus on culture, community, and conservation. as I said in the opening, there are 70,000 people who now understand why AlUla is being developed as a tourism proposition, as a reflection of their pride. But now they must be also feeling quite, not abandoned, but fearful of being alone. So your stakeholder universe, in addition to your employees and the local community and the leadership, is immense. How have you been able to connect at a local community level to keep the locals in AlUla, who it's their home, focused on the positive and almost looking to the RCU as their source of hope to get through?
I think this can't be established in a day or two. Since we started 2 years ago, we realized that the belief and engagement of everybody who lives locally in AlUla, from the families, the business owners, and the farm owners, etc., understand the deep potential of this place, so it can't be shattered by budget cuts or threatening externalities. We know, and we've communicated and engaged with the locals through multiple scenarios, that the future of hospitality industry and the future of travelers and investors, how the investors think, is going to change. But people will continue to travel. They will not travel to take an Instagram picture anymore. They will go to Instagram for that. They will seek deeper, experiential, and transformative tourism offers. Luckily, one of the key values of AlUla's destination is to not seek the flash tourism, but seek deep engagement with 250,000 years of history on the ground. So our offer has seen its roots as a culture hub. It is the 21st century offer that the locals are not there to benefit from, but are there to create. There is no us and the local, there is us, the locals. So we believe that the local community of AlUla is composed from all the operators that come and make AlUla home. The tourism operators and hotel operators and the people who create the offers. Our sense of locality builds on this heritage of an oasis that have seen the Silk Road, the Incense Road interact with it. Our mindset is we are in this together, and as long as we keep our tourism offer experiential, transformative, people will find reason to travel, but they will no longer travel just to hit a button on their camera. That is gone, in my opinion, and we have to be agile to deepen our offers with the local values we all hold.
It's an interesting one, because the way you said so many things that are so important, that firstly, the locals know that you are building AlUla as a tourism development for their benefit with them, but not just for tourism's sake. And what I find fascinating is that, exactly as you said, this time of people being grounded for 100 days and many locked in has shifted people's value of travel and their values per se. There's a perfect fit now between what AlUla has always been promising and what now travelers are going to be seeking, which, as you say, is much more personal and experiential than simply getting out there to be able to brag having been there. Because I'm curious from the point of view of, how does this challenge period actually strengthen your outreach now to investors? Why is there heightened richness in the potential of investing in AlUla?
We're debating this because this capital program we set for this year is a big capital program that hinges on this industry recovering. We're executing this year a minimum of $1.5 billion program with a lot of hospitality partners global. So we agreed internally that we need to adapt certain techniques to sustain growth and achieve true understanding of the investment community. There is a lot of capital that is surfacing in the market today because there is basically huge falling of many investment classic opportunities. What we're doing is we're trying to re-engineer the role of technology. We're trying to demonstrate resilience in our business models. We're trying to explore how we show returns over 10 and 20 years, and how can we prove that such adversities might lose some markets in the future, but how can we identify resilient, adaptable markets that are sometimes local, that we undermine, sometimes regional, and sometimes are global. So we are very carefully resorting back to our key value to nurture our partnerships. This is the time to lower the barrier for partnerships across all fronts to fuel innovation. We are not going back on our agreement. We're accepting delays. We're accepting a bit of fluctuating outcomes. We're not here to hold ourselves to contracts. We're here to be adapting all of these so that the industry recover. Because human will not stop endeavor for a voyage to rediscover themselves in new places. They might not do it like the old ways, though, okay?
But it's interesting how it sounds like you're using this time to re-engineer strategically, commercially, and also philosophically in a way that almost insulates you from future challenges that might come, which is ultimately the principle of legacy. In terms of future challenges, the current challenge we have, Puneet, is having a network error. So I will do as much as I can to build him in terms of what we know about him. I think it's also because he was very nervous that he knows that it's always one of my objectives to not just profile his excellence, but to make him blush because of the fact that he is such a great leader. To that point, though, if we look at the whole, this is a hospitality conference, and we look at the opportunities going forward, what do you, as a leader personally, Amr, look to as potential signs of hope that we can see the doors are going to open again? What do you, in your own incredibly sharp mind, look to as okay, that's a good indicator to keep an eye on?
I was very actually inspired yesterday to see the public investment fund in Saudi Arabia actually investing in the cruise industry. In all sort of this mess of doubts around a beautiful industry, Saudi Arabia stepped in to invest. I think that there is a bit of doomsday scenario happening unnecessarily, really. I think this is a bad year, but could be the foundation for a lot more years to come. Going over 3 master plans for our Amman resorts in the past couple of days, having the architects adopting every single thing they can to still produce great work while not being able to be on site, seeing GIS teams generating excessive maps to help planners do that. I think I look at these signs and it tells me something. It tells me that, of course, we're going to have to get to a vaccine, and we're going to have to get to some medical interventions with this epidemic. But I think people deeply understand that we can't let people down. There are people, jobs on the line. We can't all give up at this point. Let's revisit our cost basis. Let's think about ways where we enhance partnerships, and we're signing hotels agreements as we speak. I encourage all the players here in the digital engagement space, in the destination marketing. We're open for partnerships, we're open for collaboration, and we will add the 200 additional keys to our key count by end of this year. And I think I look at the partners we're working with, and there is fewer hesitations than the public media projects. And a platform like this is where we should be getting data, not Twitter. I mean, we have to be very objective and avoid the negative sentiments that sometimes mask the reality. There is money being spent. There are partnerships. There are resorts that are transforming themselves to offer medical support. There is hurdle rates are dropped now, and people are able to invest in various assets. We are a partner for the industry, and I welcome all of you to stand by these great industries for us all to thrive.
It's interesting. You say something very important, especially when you talk about how the properties are being utilized now from emergency response. And I'm almost getting a sense that the word legacy is actually a synonym for responsibility. And we saw that very much with Taj when they had their horrific attacks several years ago. Harvard Business School did a review on what was it about the Taj culture and the Tajness, as they call it, that literally saved lives of guests and rebuilt the Taj back even stronger. And that Tajness was clearly the people in the Taj business, not just at the property, but across the entire portfolio, being very clear that this is what they stand for. That Tajness is who they are, and they take it very personally. What I loved what Puneet said as well is the fact that when the Taj property in Mumbai opened its doors again, which was an incredibly powerful moment, it was the locals who actually came and booked to stay because they wanted to bring back their great lady that's always been an icon itself. If we look at the responsibility of legacy, and having worked with your people, I know how seriously they take that. And funnily enough, with my role on the advisory board, rather than you turning me into a tourism promoter of AlUla, because it really does promote itself, you turned me into the tourism police, because we came so protective of making sure that we didn't do damage to all that it is naturally, culturally, environmentally, spiritually. Equally, your team feels this, and having worked with your team remote now through all of this displacement of people because of the crisis, clearly this crisis has actually strengthened their commitment to making sure that AlUla will come back, and it will be even more valuable to the world as a place for that almost natural, cultural, spiritual pilgrimage. How do you see, in working with your teams, how they work together has changed because of this crisis?
Talking about turning adversity into an opportunity, we are coming as a new destination late to the game. We are a virgin destination that hasn't not yet been open to the world. So we're benefiting from re-engineering sustainability and innovation, from planning to crowd management to conservation, deep into everything we do today. Luckily, we don't have a lot of mistakes to fix. We have a lot of things to avoid doing wrong. I think sustainability of these assets, heritage, nature, again, don't come against development. That's an old school. I think tourism actually creates significant amount of local prosperity, and destinations that don't take care of local prosperity end up in despair. You have a good monument, you have poor people, you have a failing destination. So we actually want to encourage visitation, but we've established a globally announced charter that ensures that only partners that understand creative infrastructure, green and recycle and water management, understand creative crowd management, and deeply rooted culture landscape protection are welcome to work with us. We are not going to close the sites to protect them. That is the game of the week. We will encourage people because people need to come. People need to come and create stories and create economy, but at no expenses, of course, of the heritage and culture landscape. We have one UNESCO heritage site, but we have 6 globally valuable heritage destinations. That is our future economy, and we shall preserve it and conserve it, but not at the expense of the tourists.
Indeed. And it's lovely that you say that, and it brings our session to a close really well. And sadly, Puneet is not joining us. He's having Wi-Fi troubles on his side. So he's struggling, but he will get through. I have met this man, and he's an absolute soldier for the business and for the brand. Question to you, though, as we wrap up, Amr, in terms of this session itself. As I said in the briefings, I want people not just to understand whether it's the Taj brand, the group of properties, and Puneet and the CEO, and you from an RCU perspective, I want them to know who Amr is. I want them to get a sense of, this is someone in the months ahead I can look to as a source of solidarity, as a source of strength, and someone that he can come to if he needs to speak. If we look at this in 30 seconds, why are you a better leader because of COVID-19?
I think it tested my real belief up front. And I think today I am more convinced that we ought to solidify how the economy is resilient. We can't be at such stability when a virus hit. There is something profoundly now more important about what we do. We together should be able to bounce back from this without having to go as deep as we will go through this round. I believe now that the responsibilities to make this work for Saudi Arabia, for AlUla and its people, and for our partners becomes overwhelming and makes me very keen to find a way out. We all have our motives to work wherever we are. My motive is to make sure the Vision 2030 of Saudi Arabia, which in my opinion is relevant to the whole world because it's really about openness and engagement. I think it is time to stand stronger by this. I would like to conclude with one great thing I learned from Puneet yesterday, since he couldn't join. He's a great leader, and I'm sorry we don't have him with us. He was profoundly talking about affection for experience and brands. This is something beautiful that the world will see. Commoditization of hotel stay will be challenged. People have been always now unable to distinguish between a brand or another, because there was this idea of go to booking.com and look at the cheapest offer. I don't think this will remain the case. The trends we've seen in the past years for people going for experiential travel is now going to be highly valuable in future business model. I think Puneet was spot on. We need to find what differentiates our products so we all can win together. And I really enjoyed talking to you, Anita.
Thank you. You made a lovely comment, though, and I love how you brought in Puneet, and it shows just the genuine unity that this industry has itself. But you make a good point that the future of hospitality is no longer just about the hardware, it's the software. And that's something that legacy brands, legacy regions, legacy entities have always known, because it's not just the hardware that creates the experience, it's that human connection. Mother Nature knows what she's doing. She's given us a chance to all not just relook how we do our business, but how we live our own lives. This is not a hospitality crisis, nor tourism, nor geographic. This is a humanitarian crisis, and we have the opportunity to really re-engineer back at all levels so much stronger. Puneet, we have missed you. I'm going to be handing over now, but Amr, shukran, thank you very much for this conversation and carrying the time. A delight to see you as always and to share the stage. And it is now my pleasure to hand back to Stephen. Sir, the stage is yours.
Thank you,
Anita and Amr, thank you both very much indeed. Fascinating conversation, so much positivity, which I think is so important today, because we all are so very well aware of the profound challenges we face. But the important thing is to look forward and to find ways to not just to cope, but to actually come out of this with new ideas, strong ideas, and a great deal of optimism about the future. And we got that from Paul, we're getting it from Amr too, and I suspect we're going to hear different takes on how deep the challenge is and how we are going to get out of this place in the coming hours. Jonathan, thank you for joining me too.